there's some interesting things you don't know about.
Let's see, the CSD board held a number of closed session meetings under the wrong government code section, which actually dealt with financial losses from lawsuits or prospective lawsuits. These closed sessions were ostensibly held for, quote, public employee performance evaluation title GM, end quote, and continued despite a customer questioning the appropriateness of that code section months before during a board meeting. Yet the repeated error continued, and it was only recently acknowledged by GM Campo, who was in charge of constructing the agenda. The public was advised the GM had been instructed to create his own performance evaluation by documenting accomplishments for later board review, which would also likely take several more closed sessions. This is peculiar. It seems like an awfully lengthy process for such a simple request. I didn't think that the accomplishments could have been done overnight and presented at the next meeting, but it is what it is. There are already numerous examples of such accomplishment advertising on the website, Facebook, monthly agendas, handouts, and other media sources. I'm curious as to what the board actually anticipated this request would produce that they weren't aware of already. And how is a self-evaluation considered closed session material? Still wonder if something else was discussed. And that brings up the question, when is a district required to notice customers that they are involved in a lawsuit or looking at a potential lawsuit? You know, if you look back, that there's so many things that have been done wrong, and admittedly wrong, such as LAFCO authorizing Merced River water use anywhere in the district. Campo was wrong on that one. Accurate maps would be placed on the website. Campo was wrong on that one. The SWRCB had previously accidentally approved the wrong map. Campo was wrong on that one. There was no connection between the subdivision and the place of use for Merced River water. Campo was wrong on that one. Water losses would remain between 27 and 31%. Well, this obviously is an exception, but wrong on that. There was no LAFCO attempted or annexed properties that wanted service of water. That's incorrect. No demand for other outside place of use properties. Wrong. The legitimate POU would be created with a $35,000 map, maybe eventually, but it certainly wasn't when it was presented to the public. Now, this sounds like I'm picking on Pete, and that's not fair because he singularly could not do any of these things. He has to have support. And that first bit of support came from the board, who failed to do their fiduciary duty and check the facts and make sure things were correct. I mean, after a year of being asked just to simply contact the SWRCB for a legitimate map is just incomprehensible. I mean, it'd be like if you had a problem with your DMV license, instead of going to the DMV, you took it to your mechanic. It makes absolutely no sense. And as you pointed out earlier, whether it's a local CSD board or an FBI targeting political adversaries in a presidential election, there are many examples of those who will almost do anything in an attempt to maintain control and force their personal business agendas on others, regardless of how unethical, immoral, or illegal their objectives may be. Thank you for bringing that up.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. Presiding officer's report. You know, I normally just, my process is I take notes during this meeting and I communicate with Pete via email, and so that's where part of this agenda comes from, is notes that are taken here on public comments and things like that. So that's kind of what I do on a monthly basis. So try to keep things moving forward. So with that, I don't have a report prepared for you guys because you know what's going on around here. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Pete for his report on what's going on. So Pete, you're up.
Okay. Two mini reports, not too many, but two small reports that were prepared previously have been included for discussion just because the question keeps coming up in the discussion from the public and within the board. And I'll be glad to address these in any way in the future, now, or however you like it, but the fire hydrant responsibility has always been one that is an issue that has been raised before this board, and fingers pointed that the board is personally, individually, and as a board, and the district is responsible if a hydrant malfunctions. And part of this memo is to clarify that doesn't mean that we don't take responsibility as to whether a fire hydrant functions or not. It is our responsibility because it's part of our infrastructure. But from a legal perspective, it's not it's not in the law that says that the district has to maintain fire protection services from the district infrastructure. I mean, those are design requirements that the developer met through the county, and they're hydrants that we maintain and we do use for flushing. We use them during the flood emergency to help get the water up the hill and purge air out and all that. So there are a number of functions other than just firefighting. They're a way to operate the system. Fire hydrants are also helpful in troubleshooting the system. You flush a couple of fire hydrants and you read pressures around, and you can see if you have a closed valve, if you have a malfunctioning pressure regulating valve, things like that. And hydrants are supposed to be maintained, and they should be repaired when they're broken, and bagged if they're broken and aren't going to work. And those are things that, because we have well over 400 of them in the system, a hydrant and a valve, that is, it's a $6,000 piece of equipment if we were to go just replace it in kind and not have any problems. They're a very expensive piece of infrastructure. They take specialty tools and training and time and skills, and we do need to get to them. We absolutely do, and that's another part of my report a little bit here in the future is how we will get there. But again, not saying that we shouldn't pay attention to them. They are an important part of our infrastructure like anything else, and if they fail, they take a lot of overtime and a lot of cost, and we want to get to those. Also, the other small piece of information was back in 2015, we had started in earnest using a construction company to do service line replacements because they were mounting up on us, and we couldn't, even with a 4-person crew at the time, we couldn't get the crews dedicated with enough time to be able to keep up with the repairs, which can be an all-day job to go out and replace a service line. To go out and repair it, to dig it up, dig a small hole, get around the pipe, put a clamp on it, cover it back over and go away, they can get that done easily in a day with all of the other stuff that's going on. The dilemma we're having is we're going back multiple times on the same pipe. And so just that report gives you a little bit of background, might spark your attention a little bit about some of the laws and other requirements related to whether the district constructs in-house, creates its own construction crews, or contracts out for that type of work. I'm sure Randy will address it a little bit more, but we continue to work on the meters, the water meters. We had, as you know, we've been having an ongoing problem with them. Transmitters primarily, that the information is not getting transmitted correctly from the meter through the transmitter, which is an electronic device, to a handheld device, and so we're troubleshooting those. I attached the water loss report. Looks like we had quite a loss. It took a full day for the water system to fill up with everything running at full bore to try to fill the system up once it emptied out with the flash flood damage. So that was really kind of an interesting thing to learn, that it took over 24 hours to fill the system back up. Not just the tanks, but the lines too. If you think about it, those are millions and millions of gallons that are in the ground in the pipes that are sitting there empty. Sometimes you can have unforeseen damages. You may not see it now, but some of the pipes or AC, most of the pipes, asbestos cement, short sections with a coupling and a rubber gasket inside. They're pushed together, and the pressure of that pipe going together, and then the next stick holds it together. Okay? When you have ground saturation and you have a pipe that's pressurized, and all of a sudden the pressure comes off of it, and it sits there, and then the pressure comes back on, things might move. So we may not have seen the end to things coming apart. Okay, just to let you know. That's something that we're going to have to monitor.